How's it going, folks? Welcome to Algebra 1. Today we're going to be looking at the Chapter 7-8 review worksheet. We're going to be looking over those answers. Let's go ahead and get started. So our first couple problems are here. We're going to be simplifying, leaving our answers in exponential form with only positive exponents. So first thing we're going to want to do here is we have w to the 7th to the 2nd power. Anytime we have a power to a power, we're going to multiply. So this would be w to the 7 times 2, which would give us w to the 14th. For part B, anytime you have a negative exponent, we're going to bring the base that it's attached with, and we're going to flip it. So this is going to be 1 over w, and when we flip it, we change it from a negative exponent to a positive exponent. So we're just left with 1 over w. For 500 to the 0 power, we should know that anything to the 0 power is always going to be 1. For our next one here, we've got c to the 8th times c to the 4th. Since we have the same base and they are being multiplied, we're going to add our exponents. We're going to have c to the 8 plus 4. This is going to be c to the 12th. For our next one here, we have a to the negative 4th over a to the 7th. When we have the same bases and they are being divided, we are going to subtract their exponents. We're going to have a to the negative 4 minus 7. Negative 4 minus 7 is going to be a to the negative 11th. And we only want positive exponents. So we're going to take that base that it's attached to. We're going to flip it, move it from the numerator to the denominator. And we're going to change that negative exponent and make it positive. So we have 1 over a to the 11th. Now the next one, please take things one step at a time. Okay, so let's look at our whole numbers. We have 24 and we have 16. We can see that both of these can be reduced by 8. 24 divided by 8 will be 3. 16 divided by 8 will be 2. We're then going to have x, y to the 8th, and we'll have x to the 4th, y to the negative 3rd. So moving on here, anytime that we have an x without a power, let's go ahead and just give it a nice looking 1. So I want us to think about this as 3 different sections. We have the 3 over 2, which we can keep there. We have x to the 1st divided by x to the 4th. Just like in example E, when we do division, we subtract their exponents. So I'll have x to the 1 minus 4. And then here I'll have y to the 8th divided by y to the negative 3rd. This will be y to the 8 minus negative 3. Now let's go ahead and start simplifying a little bit more. We're going to be left with 3 over 2. X to the 1 minus 4 would be x to the negative 3rd. And then y to the 8 minus negative 3. It's the same thing as 8 plus 3, so we'll have y to the 11th. The last thing we need to do is we need to make this exponent positive. So we're going to move the base that it's attached to, which is going to be x. It's in the numerator, so we're going to move it to the denominator. So in our numerator, we still have 3. We still have y to the 11th. In our denominator, we still have 2, and we're going to move this x from the numerator to the denominator, and then turn our exponent from negative to positive. So our final answer is 3y to the 11th over 2x cubed. Let's go ahead and jump to the next couple problems. So still working with our exponent rules here. So let's go ahead and multiply this out. We have 8 and we have 4. Always start with your whole numbers. 8 times 4 is going to be 32. Next we have a base and a base that are the same. So we're going to add their exponents because they're being multiplied. So we're going to have a to the 9 plus negative 17. This will leave us with 32a to the negative 8th. And we need to change this from a negative exponent to a positive one. So when I rewrite it, this 3 will stay in the numerator. This negative 8 is only attached to the a. So the a is the only thing that I'm flipping, and I'm going to change this sign from negative to positive. So I'm left with 3 over a to the 8th. Looking at part H, now we've got exponents outside of some monomials. So we need to make sure this exponent goes to everything. We're going to have 3 squared times x to the power to a power. You're going to multiply them, so 6 times 12. And then we need to make sure that this exponent also goes to everything. We're going to have 4 squared times x power to a power we multiply, -8 times 2. So let's go ahead and start simplifying. I'm going to have 9 times x to the, sorry, that's not supposed to be 12, that's supposed to be 2 times 2. So we'll have x to the 12th multiplied by 16 x to the -16th. Let's go ahead and continue. We're going to have 9 times 16, which will give us 144. And then we have x to the 12th times x to the -16th. They have the same base, and they're being multiplied, so we're going to add their exponents. That'll be 12 plus -16. Let's go ahead and simplify this. So we'll have 144 x to the -4th. And one last thing, this negative exponent we need to bring down. We'll have 144 over x to the 4th power. Okay, looking at part I here. Okay, again, we have a power to a monomial, so we need to make sure this 3 goes to everything. So we'll have 2 cubed times x power to a power, 5 times 3, times y to the 3rd power. 2 cubed is going to be 8. We'll have x to the 15th, and then y cubed. And that is our simplified version of this piece there. Okay, looking at our part J, let's go ahead, keep our numerator alone. So we have c to the 7th. Let's simplify our denominator first. I'm going to have c times c squared to the 2nd power. This is going to be c to the 2 times 2. This will be to the 1st power. So I'm left with c to the 7th over c to the 1st times c to the 4th. We're going to have c to the 7th. In our denominator, I have c to the 1st times c to the 4th. We're going to add those exponents, so c to the 1 plus 4. This is going to leave me with c to the 7th over c to the 5th. And then I can simplify that since we're dividing. We subtract the exponents, c to the 7 minus 5, which leaves me with c squared as my simplified version of that expression. Okay, and our last one here. This is probably going to be the most tricky one. So we have a monomial. Okay, there's no addition or subtraction, so all of this is one piece. We need to make sure that this 4, the exponent, goes to everything. It goes to the 2, it goes to the x squared, it goes to the 3, and it goes to the y to the -4th. So when I rewrite this, I'm left with 2 to the 4th, x power to a power, so 2 times 4, over 3 to the 4th, y to the -4th times 4. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and simplify these things. 2 to the 4th, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 will give me 16. I'll then have x to the 8th. 3 to the 4th, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 will give me 81. And then I'll have y to the -16th. Okay, moving forward, that 16 and the 81 are going to stay where they are. Our x to the 8th cannot be simplified in any way. However, our y has a negative exponent. Since it has a negative exponent, the y, which is the only thing attached, needs to move from the denominator to the numerator. So we're going to have y to the, change it from negative to positive, 16th power. And we're going to go ahead and get our simplified version of this expression. Let's go ahead and keep going. So we're going to add or subtract and then put them in standard form. Anytime that you have a negative in front of a polynomial, we need to make sure we distribute that negative to everything. So I have 5x minus 3x squared minus 6 from this left part. Then I'm going to have minus 6 minus 3x and plus 9x squared. Essentially, anytime you have a minus, you're just going to change the signs of everything in there. From here, we need to combine our like terms. So I see a 9x squared and a negative 3x squared. This is going to leave me with 6x squared. Notice how I started with the x squared because it is the thing with the highest degree. Okay, the highest exponent is what we start with when we're writing in standard form. I then see a negative 3x as well as a 5x. That's going to leave me with positive 2x. And then my last piece is here. I'm going to have negative 6 and negative 6, which will leave me with positive 12. And that's my expression in standard form there. Now looking at our next piece, this one's even nicer because it's just addition. So we're going to identify our like terms. I see I have 3x cubed. There are no other x cubes. So I have 3x cubed. Let's look at our x squareds. I have positive 4x squared, negative 9x squared. That's going to leave me with negative 5x squared. I only have 3x, so plus 3x. And then I have 16 and negative 7. When I add those together, I'm going to have positive 9. And this is my expression in standard form. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going. We're going to name that polynomial by degree and number of terms. So the best thing to do is to put this in standard form first. I'm going to have negative 9x squared plus 3x plus 16. So this is going to be a second degree. And we're going to call this a quadratic. Okay, anything to the second degree, which is the highest exponent, is going to be known as a quadratic. Now, when we're talking about number of terms, there is 1, 2, 3 terms, which we call a trinomial. Okay, just like a tricycle, it has 3 parts. Okay, from here, we're going to multiply and then simplify. For our first one, I have 5x times 3x, which will be 15x squared. I'll have 5x times negative 7, which will be negative 35x. And this right here is in simplest form and in standard form. Looking at our next one, we're going to go ahead and again distribute. I have negative 5x to the fourth times 3x squared. Negative 5 times 3 will be negative 15. X to the fourth times x squared. We add the exponents. That'll be x to the sixth. I then do negative 5x to the fourth times 2x. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. X to the fourth times x to the first will be x to the fifth. And then finally, I have negative 5x to the fourth times negative 1. This is going to leave me with positive 5x to the fourth. And this is in standard form already. Looking at our next one, let's go ahead and use the box. I have 3x, negative 1. I have 4x and positive 3. 4x times 3x will give me 12. 4 times 3 is 12. X times x is x squared. I'll then have 4x times negative 1, which is negative 4x. 3x times 3, which is 9x. And then 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3. Writing this out, I have 12x squared minus 4x plus 9x minus 3. I'm going to have some like terms here, which are going to be negative 4x and 9x. And when I write my final answer, I will have 12x squared plus 5x minus 3. Okay, I'm going to continue on here. I believe this is our last page. So be very careful on part D. This is something that a lot of people mess up. 3x minus 7 squared is the same thing as 3x minus 7 times 3x minus 7. Let's go ahead and set up our box. So I have 3x, negative 7. I have 3x, negative 7. 3 times 3 will be 9. X times x will be x squared. 3x times negative 7 will be negative 21x. 3x times negative 7 will be negative 21x, and negative 7 times negative 7 will be positive 49. Writing this out, I have 9x squared minus 21x minus 21x plus 49. We have like terms of negative 21x's. So my final answer will be 9x squared minus 42x plus 49. Last example here. I'm going to set up my box again. On the top, I'm going to have 2x squared, positive 8x, and a negative 3. We're going to split that up into 3 different sections. On the left, I have 4x and negative 1. So giving them some rows there. Now to just go ahead and multiply. 4 times 2 is 8. X times x squared will be x cubed. 4x times 8x. 4 times 8 is 32. X times x will be x squared. 4x times negative 3 is negative 12x. 2x squared times negative 1 is negative 2x squared. Negative 1 times 8x will be negative 8x. And negative 3 times negative 1 will be positive 3. So now let's go ahead and write it all out. We have 8x cubed plus 32x squared minus 12x. I have negative 2x squared, negative 8x, and positive 3. When we write these out in standard form, we're going to want to start with our highest degree. The highest degree is 3. Okay, so we're going to have 8x cubed. Then our next highest degree will be 2. We have 2 pieces here. 32x squared and negative 2x squared will give us 30x squared. Then go to the first degree. Negative 12x plus negative 8x will give us negative 20x. And then we have 3 remaining. This is our polynomial written in standard form. And thank you, folks. That's all I have for today.